Welcome to our Middles Art Project. Today's project is called Wintry Birds, and we are going to take some fun mixed media art techniques and make a fun, pretty bird project for you. You should have picked up your take and make bag with the contents that you'll need for this project. Let's get started. In your take and make bag, you're going to find several pieces of supplies here for our different mixed media techniques. We're going to find a piece of newspaper, some tissue paper, a heavier weight piece of cardstock. You'll find a piece of cardstock with a bird template printed on it. There'll be a couple of 3 cotton balls in your take and make bag, some watercolor paints, a glue stick, and some brown construction paper. You will need from your supplies a pair of scissors and some water for the paint. And so the first thing that I'm going to do to get started is I'm going to paint my bird so that it can dry while I'm doing a couple of the other things. So for me, it's easier to paint the bird before cutting it out, because that way if I go over the lines, it's protecting the table. So the first thing I want to do is open my watercolor paints, and I'm going to take out my paintbrush, and I'm going to dip the paintbrush in the water, and then I'm going to get the red paint wet, obviously, because I'm going to make a cardinal. You don't have to make a cardinal. You could make your bird any color you want. That's the beauty of art. There aren't any real rules. So I'm just going to paint my cardinal, and I might have to keep adding water to my paint. So I'm just going to keep adding some water. You don't need a ton of water, but you can just paint them. And I try to stay in the lines, but I don't always do that, so that's okay. And if your paint gets dry, just add some more water and just paint in. And just keep painting. And I'm going to kind of avoid the beak area because I want to paint that orange. And so we'll kind of come down like this with our red or blue or whatever color you decide you want your bird to be. So we'll just keep painting. And if you've painted your cardinal and your other colored bird, whatever you want your bird to be, and the color's not dark enough, you can always let it dry for a minute, go back and get some more paint, and then do another layer. And so the more layers you put on there, the deeper your color will be. So if you just keep doing that, and then you get him nice and red. Don't put him accidentally in the black. So, and this will dry pretty quickly. But we'll just keep adding some red so that we've got it all nice and covered up. And then once I'm happy with my red, I'm going to rinse my brush out. And then I'm going to go in with the orange and paint his beak. And I'm going to wait until I get him placed in my art piece to make his feet, because I don't want to cut out his feet, number one. And number two, I might be it might go someplace other than his feet might be in a weird place. So we'll wait to add feet, but then you can put your beak on there, get his beak nice and orange. And the cardinals have a little black mask on their face. So I'm just gonna take my black and make kind of like a V shape. It's black, and my picture's not quite dry, so it might, but just kind of like this. And would help because I'm using blue instead of black, so that's part of my problem. But we'll just do this, kind of a V shape. And again, you can go over your color and make it darker if you want. And then the other thing I'm going to do, and you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to give him wings, or a wing. So we'll just take our black and we're going to make a V kind of down here, right in here, just like that. And that'll give him wings. And you don't have to do that, that's just my little thing. So then I'm gonna set that aside to dry for a few minutes. So we'll just put him over here for a minute and let that dry before I try to cut it out and get it all smudgy. I'm gonna take my blank piece of paper and I'm going to put the newspaper on top of that. And you don't have to do this, I just think it'll be a fun little added bonus to it. So I'm just gonna tear this piece of newspaper, just however it tears, and just tear it down, tear a piece off, and just, if that's too much, I'll tear it. Just kind of, it doesn't have to be exact. Fun little added piece of interest to our project. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm at least partially covering the paper. I think I'm going to tear a little bit of the top off too. All right, so then I'm going to take my glue and just put it around the edges of this piece of newspaper so that it will stick really well onto my piece of cardstock. And then I'm going to put a little bit in the middle just so that it sticks well. And I'm going to flip it over, line it up wherever I think looks good. Press it down, smooth it out, and then I'm just going to set my newspaper aside because I don't think I want it anymore. Then I'm going to take my blue paint and I'm going to make a blue background up on the top, like kind of for the sky, and then I'm going to leave the bottom part. Actually, I think maybe I'll paint the whole thing blue just because. What the heck? So we're going to find our blue, which is right here in our paint. And we're just going to make swooshy marks across our paper. Just paint it up across the newspaper, over the edges. If you're concerned about painting on your table, just lift your paper up. And just keep painting. The other thing you can do is keep a paper towel handy. paint, paint, paint. Stuff will take a couple minutes just because you're painting such a large area. But I just kind of like the interest that it brings to our background. And if you notice when you dip into your little paint pot with less water, your color is darker, but it's also drier so it doesn't go as far. So you may again still have to keep adding paint, or excuse me, water to your paint. And we'll just keep swooshing paint across our paper until you're happy with it. And you don't have to cover the whole thing. If you think you're going to put a tree on one side, which I plan to do, you wouldn't have to paint all the way over to that side. You could just paint this side. And I'm doing this in a hurry just so we can not make our video too long, but you can take as much time as you want to do this. If this is your favorite part, you enjoy it as much as you need to. I just try to make sure I get my edges. Just keep painting and painting and painting. I kind of like the interest that that piece of newspaper gives to our background. And different stroke lengths can create different interest in your background as well. I suppose you could try swirlies if that's the way you like to paint. You could do it this way. That's the fun of these kinds of things. You can make it your own and do them however you want to. There's no right or wrong answers when you're making art. All right, so now I have my blue on here. Got my edges pretty good. Just like that. And so there you can see I've got blue and my newspaper, and it doesn't all have to be filled in. You can leave the blank spaces if you want. That's perfectly fine. Clean up my paint off my table. And so then I'm going to let that dry for just a second, and I'm going to take my brown construction paper and I'm going to create a little tree for my bird to sit in. So I'm just going to kind of roughly measure how tall the piece of cardstock is. So I'll just take and cut that off a little bit. And then I'm going to take this and I'm just going to try to create some squiggly branches. And again, however you want to make trees and branches, that is fine. That's what makes these uniquely yours. You could also just put the trunk of the tree on, and then you could paint branches with the paint, or you could get Crayolas or whatever you have at home. Just something along these lines. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. I just cut this out, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it on my paper like this. So I will take my glue stick again, glue it. Make sure you got glue right to the edges. And then we'll stick our tree right here, attach him. And if some of your edges stick up, you might have missed glue. So just take your glue stick, put some glue on there and make sure it sticks down well. That doesn't look like it's sticking. There's that part. And the glue will dry. And there's our tree. The next thing I'm going to do is cut out the bird. And I'm going to put my glasses on for that. And so we'll just take the bird and cut him out along the lines. Cut. This part will go pretty fast. It's not a lot to the cutting. The trickiest part will be around his head feathers there. For me, it's easiest to go back and do those once I've cut the rest of it out. And just cut. It's still a little bit wet, so I may end up with a little bit of paint on my fingers, but that's okay. I'll set that aside, trim up his tail. Trim up his feathers here in the back of his head. This little pointy thing, it's pointy feathers. Just like that. And then we'll glue him in his tree as well. He can sit right on the end of his branches. So we'll put some glue on the back of our cardinal. And I'm just using the extra cardstock to glue him on so that I don't get glue all over the table. But we're just putting glue all along the edges of the bird. And so I'll take him and sit him right here on this tree branch. And again, you can make your tree branches longer if you want to, longer than I made mine. And he will just stick down like that. And then if I want, I can go back to my paint, and I can paint some orange feet right here. Or I could take an orange crayon, whatever is handy, whatever you like to use. We'll give him some feet. And then you could, if you wanted to, take the yellow crepe paper that's in your take and make bag and make a sun over here if you want to do that. I'm going to take the cotton ball, or one of the cotton balls, and I'm going to put a little bit of snow in the tree, just kind of like this, on the branches. And I'll glue that down in just a second. And then I'm also going to put some here along the ground. You just kind of pull your cotton ball apart, glue it down. You could take the cotton and make wispy clouds if you wanted to, or I suppose you could take teeny pieces and make snowflakes if you wanted to try that. This is kind of what I'm doing with mine this time. Just glue that down. And there you have my creation for a wintry bird using some newspaper for the background and some paint. The first one that I did, I used a bunch of tissue paper for the background. I just cut it into small little rectangle-y, triangle-y shapes, glued that down, and then did basically the same thing with the tree and the birds and the clouds, and made a little sun up here with a yellow piece of crepe paper, or tissue paper. So there's all kinds of fun techniques you could do with this, but these are the two that I've made, and I would love to see what you do with your supplies. Have fun! Thank you for joining us today for our Middles Art Wintry Birds project. I hope you had a lot of fun and learned a new art technique with this. And please, I would love to see any videos or pictures of you doing this project, and you can share them at the email address that is coming across the screen right now. Have fun, and we'll see you next time. Bye!